That's no moon. It's a space station.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. A few quick announcements before we get started. As you know, our documentary just released, A Lifetime of Silence Behind the Green Door, A Case for the Secret Space Program. The feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. We've had some amazing reviews. It is technically available, officially available now on our Patreon for $14.99. You can sign up below. The link is below. And you can purchase it to own. But if you want to wait a couple months, which is probably realistically what it's going to be, it will be on the streaming services like Amazon Prime, Roku TV, a few other ones. You know, we submitted it out to Film Hub, but there's some, it takes a lot of time to do that. So if you don't want to wait, then you can join our Patreon and watch it today if you'd like. We're very proud of it, and it's been 3 years in the making, and it's finally done. So we hope you enjoy it. And our Hawaii conference, which Debbie Solaris, our guest today, is going to be speaking at, is right around the corner, April 20th through the 24th on the Big Island. And we cannot wait. It's going to be so much fun. You know, this is something I've been wanting to do for years after I went to the Big Island for our conference in 2019, Cosmic Waves. It changed my life and been waiting for someone to do it since. Nobody was doing it. So here we are. We're doing it. And we're inviting some of our favorite people there, and we're excited to have Debbie with us on the island. But if you are interested in joining us, there's just over 20 spots available, and you can buy tickets at journeytotruth.online. That link is below. Virtual live stream passes are now available for only $55. And I have created a Telegram group that gives you access to everyone else who has purchased a ticket if you're looking to coordinate travel, lodging, rental cars, whatever it is. It just makes it easier and affordable. So that Telegram link is on the website as well. Without wasting any more time, today we are joined by Debbie Solaris, who is an ET contactee, ascension coach, and galactic historian. And I'm just going to read through the first part of your bio, actually, Debbie, before we get into some of this stuff. So through her ancestral connection with the Akashic Records, she has been receiving downloads of galactic historical information and universal spiritual knowledge ever since. She feels it's a big part of her mission while here on Earth to help awaken others to their divine selves and cosmic origins. Debbie came upon the metaphysical scene almost by accident, as she would describe it, and calls herself a real late bloomer on the spiritual path. Debbie had a very conventional and conservative Roman Catholic upbringing in a military family, which is interesting to me, where aliens and UFOs were never discussed, and what mattered was the material world in which we inhabit. And it goes on, but just to give you a little background of who Debbie is, and we'll let her introduce herself a little better. So welcome to the show, Debbie.
Oh, thank you for having me, Tyler. I actually been wanting to get on your show for a while, so when you reached out, I was like, "Oh, wow,
Oh, no
cool,"
way.
you know? Yeah,
Well,
no,
great to
totally.
finally have you.
Ever since I met you in Sedona at the Cosmic Awakening conference, I thought, "What a cool show," and, there's kinda like a lot of overlay between, galactic information and the secret space program, so, I always love to kinda merge into, unfamiliar waters, so to speak, but, it's good to see kind of the more disclosure side of things too. So thank you for having me, and, I'm real excited to be doing some projects with you guys later on, so, it's gonna be, a great year. And I am also an Akashic channeler, so a lot of people know me initially through my Akashic work, which, in the beginning of my, I guess, spiritual practice that I did, quite a bit of Akashic readings. I still do them today, but, obviously with everything else going on, it's kinda hit and miss sometimes with the Akashic readings, but, so I'm also known for Galactic Akashic Records, so we also delve into that realm as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how you have an Akashic Record directory an
Mhm.
Akashic reader directory on your website, which has a number of readers that people can just go choose from, which I think is amazing. But I do wanna before we jump into all this stuff, you're
Yeah.
coming to the Big Island, we're going to Hawaii,
Oh,
and,
absolutely.
we're gonna have so much fun down there, but just for the people who are interested in coming or might be, on the fence about purchasing a ticket, what are you gonna be, talking about down there? What's your presentation?
Um, Actually, the one that you and I talked about was the Lemurian Atlantis presentation, which I really deep dive into all of my topics, so you're gonna get more than just the standard, information that you can find online. It's, goes into great detail about what the Lemurians were like, how many years ago did they have their civilization, how did their civilization end, how does their civilization impact Earth even today, through, various geographical areas that were influenced by Lemuria, and then also, I also get into some information about Atlantis, even though Hawaii is more Lemuria-centric, so most of the focus will be on Lemuria, but I do get into some information about Atlantis as well and the differences between those 2 civilizations, and I personally feel like I have a connection with Hawaii. I was actually I was active duty military between 1988 and 1994, and I would say the bulk of my enlistment was spent in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. So I have
Really?
really
Right.
great memories of my time there. I just remembered, I wanted to go to Europe initially, but I got stationed to Hawaii, and I was kinda bummed out until I stepped on the ground in Honolulu, and I knew at that point that I had come home, that it was just such a overwhelming feeling, and I remember, after I got off the plane, I wanted to go to the beach, and I just kind of, fell to my knees, and I was like, "Oh, thank you for for sending me here instead." It was such I think that was divinely orchestrated, and I am a Lemurian soul, so I've had past lives in Lemuria, so I just feel this special connection with Hawaii.
Yeah, that's incredible, actually, you're making me excited about just talking
Yeah,
about it.
yeah.
I had a similar feeling whenever when I went there in 2019, it almost felt like another planet to me, like,
It is,
it does
it's
not
Yeah.
feel like it's part of the States, you know?
not at all.
And that's because it does have that sacred connection with the Lemuria and who knows what else, but also, interestingly enough, military presence there, like, you were stationed there. So, maybe we could kinda start from there. I had some other notes, but I'm kind of interested in your military background in the
Yeah.
sense that, um, I don't know your timeline as far as when you came online and started remembering all this stuff, but while you were in the military, were you aware of the presence of extraterrestrials and the government involvement with them?
Not at all. No, it was long before my awakening, I think I had some sort of, I don't know, spiritual understanding of, that there was things that were unexplained or things beyond our reality, but that's as far as I went. I mean, at the time, I was in my early 30s or I think late 20s, early 30s, and I was just focused on trying to survive in the military, to be quite honest. I was actually stationed at what they call EPMU 6, which is at Pearl Harbor. It was their environmental headquarters, so I was mostly an environmentalist, when I was in the military, with a background in, I was a hospital corpsman, so that was my initial training, which is like a army medic, very similar to that,
Okay.
and then, I, um, I just had this sense, like, when I arrived there that I had past lives there, but I didn't know enough or wasn't awakened enough to know what that meant entirely, but it's just this feeling or this inner knowing that you get. But yeah, I didn't actually awaken until 2012. So that was quite a bit of time. I think I left Hawaii like probably 1994. So
Right.
uh Yeah, so that was, quite a ways before my awakening, but I did get the sense, that I had past lives there, that there was some sort of connection. At the time, I couldn't explain it.
Sure. Okay, so we fast forward to 2012, you start going
Mhm.
through your awakening, and we don't have to go through that whole story because as
It's available out there.
exactly.
Exactly, yeah.
I it's I think it's more important to cover some of the more relevant stuff, and not saying your story or anybody's story isn't important, but it could take a long time to get through. So, basically, what you do now is you're an ascension coach and a galactic historian. You tap into the Akashic records, and I find it interesting. So you have the galactic history tab on your website, and you have Lyra, Vega, the Lyran Draconium, or Sirius, Sirius B and C, Pleiades, Orion, Arcturus, Andromeda Galaxy, Andromeda, Antares, and then at the end you have the Earth Experiment.
Mhm.
So I know we can't go through the entire galactic history, but this has been a spiritual galactic war. And
Mhm.
I'm just gonna go out on a limb and ask you where you think we are in this galactic war right now. Has it evolved since you've gotten into this? Do you think the light has the upper hand? Like what does that look like to you in your opinion?
Yeah, I've actually been exploring that entire topic, I would say since my awakening, so it's kinda like you go, so just kind of give a little backdrop to what happened to me. In 2012, I had an extraterrestrial contact experience, and it wasn't a dream, it was very, very real, it was probably more real than 3D real, so when you're in the higher realms. There's a lot of similarities, I would say, between a near death experience and an ET contact experience, except you don't have to die to have an ET contact experience. But I just remember, after the next morning, after it happened, like I knew that things on earth were not as it seems. And so, like a lot of people, I think I just kind of deep dived into the disclosure information, along with taking spiritual classes and just trying to figure out what the heck was going on. But as far as getting to your question, I do think we're further along than we were in 2012. How I would relate this experience we're going through right now, um, in I would say comparing to other civilizations that have gone through similar experiences, I would say we're kind of in line with what the Orion belt stars were going through, during, the times of conflict. There was a lot of duality consciousness in the Orion constellation because it was such a big constellation. It had reptilian outposts, it had gray alien outposts, it had insectoids on the outlier stars, but then in the belt stars, there were all the people that were more interested in maintaining self-sovereignty, so they didn't wanna become part of the empire, which kinda sounds Star Warish, which I honestly think Star Wars is not fiction. I think it's based on the Orion Wars, at least that's my belief, but we're kind of at the point right now where we got Galactic Federation support, we got the Ashtar Command, we got, some of these Arcturian, Starfleet support. So we are inching more towards the light, but I think, the powers to be on this planet, the dark cabal, whatever you wanna call them, the Illuminati, the one percenters, they're hanging on for dear life, because they went through this before. They went through all this in Orion. They got ousted or they decided to leave Orion, and then they have since, conquered planet Earth, or tried to conquer planet Earth, so we're now in that kind of point where we haven't totally won the war, but we're winning more battles. I don't know if that makes sense, but,
Yeah,
uh, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And so okay, this right now, we meaning, okay, a lot of people talk about the alliance, the white hats. So I guess you said like we have Federation help, Ashtar Command, Arcturian
Mhm.
help. So it's just any positive group, fighting for the light essentially,
Yeah.
and we're winning more battles against who predominantly at this moment in time, in your opinion?
Yeah. So, just reaching back into a little galactic history. So I mentioned Orion constellation. Orion was really pivotal because they went through a similar process that we're going through right now here on Earth. And they have since shifted to the light. So what happened in Orion, there was, all these, diverse groups, all trying to claim territorial rights, and after the Lyran Wars, the reptilians they expanded, so they didn't just take over Lyra; they also wanted to take over other systems. So one of the systems they colonized was the Orion system, probably because it's I would say it's very strategically located. It's located between Sirius and between the Pleiades, and so they can keep an eye on, the Sirians and the Pleiadians, but they were trying to conquer the entire system, kind of like the whole Star Wars saga, so there was humanoid and other groups of beings that lived in the belt stars of Orion, which is Analam, Analtech, and Mintaka, that wanted to maintain their sovereignty. They didn't want to be under reptilian rule. That wasn't, they so they had what they called the Black League resistance fighters. And the Black League was they were kind of a ragtag kind of group at first, but I think they got more and more organized as the galactic federations started getting more involved and was, offering assistance. So eventually, I think through the help of some of these other benevolent races, the Orion people were able to establish, self sovereignty amongst their planet. So what happened to the reptilian, overlords, if you want to call it that? Well, they didn't wanna get integrated into the light, they were just like, "No, we like being conquerors, we like being of the dark, we don't wanna get, join join the band, the light bandwagon," you wanna call it that.
Right.
And so they were looking for new, star systems to conquer, and so, of course, they got their eye on this solar system. And initially, they, I think, had some colonization in a planet called Maldek. So, Maldek is the planet that used to exist between Mars and Jupiter that ended up getting into a civil war and got destroyed because these were service to self kind of people. They were not interested in coexisting. So, there was a lot of conflict in Maldek for that reason. And then my understanding from the Akashic records and my own research is that I do think the reptilian forces did try to colonize Mars, but for whatever reason that wasn't successful. So then they thought, well, let's take over Earth, So they started infiltrating the Atlantean government, and they actually convinced the Atlanteans that the Lemurians were their enemies and they needed to go to war with the Lemurians. So it's, all this intrigue and deception and corruption that happened even back then. And so after the fall of Lemuria, these reptilians or reptilian descendants integrated into the powerful families of Europe, so I would say, there's probably reptilian genetics and probably almost all of the royal families you see in the European sector, maybe even in other locations such as China or Japan. So they've always tried to maintain a stronghold over planet Earth. So that's the group that is, I guess, representing kind of this struggle between light and dark, so that's the group that we're still, It's kinda like I think a lot of us, there's, like a familiarity, like, a lot of us light workers, we kinda feel like, "Wow, I think I've lived through this before," or, "This seems very familiar," or and I think maybe we are, I think privy or awakened to some of the, I the pandemics or the false flags or things that this particular group tries to instill in order to try to, keep control over the masses. But I think because, we have had past lives where we've dealt with this kind of thing, I think there's, right now, at least on this planet, there's more people that are awakening, that are awakening to what's going on. And they're not tolerating it anymore. So I do think we're at the stage where we're starting to see the current system crumble, and from the inside anyway, it's not very apparent from the outside, but, I do think, the Federal Reserve is gonna get abolished. I think the IRS is going to end. I mean, I think there's gonna be a lot of monetary changes in addition to societal and economic changes. So we're
Right.
kind of at that point, but I would say, like, there's still corruption amongst, definitely amongst, the United States government, and, I mean, there's still a lot of cleanup work that has to be done, so, I don't think we can pull out our party hats yet and celebrate, but
Right.
at least we're getting closer.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think well, go ahead, Aaron, were you gonna say something?
And the release of advanced technologies that we've had for 100 plus years now that's been hidden and weaponized against humanity will actually start being released and benefiting humanity
Exactly,
soon, on top
exactly.
of,
Yeah.
um, less of the slave system that we've had where you gotta work a job you don't like to survive and barely get by. More and more people are gonna be able to spend their time and have enough to survive and then do what they want to do with their life and
Yeah.
actually,
So
uh
do you believe in Nasara Jasara? My
yeah,
husband's a big believer of it,
I mean, I don't that
yeah,
term, I don't know if it's gonna play out exactly like that, but the concept of that I absolutely believe in is that there has
yeah.
to be a change on every level, and that includes everything financially, and
Oh,
yeah, absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think probably what's likely gonna happen is that we're gonna go through this transition period where there'll still be, like, a monetary system, but maybe not a fiat level one, but more like gold or silver backed where it's a little more legitimate, and then from there, we'll move into a non-monetary system where, your value is not based on how much money you have,
Right.
Right.
and I do think the wealth is gonna be redistributed. I don't know exactly if it's gonna be Nasara Jasara level either. My husband is a big believer in that. Sometimes I'm kinda like, I don't know," that sounds like
Well,
a
I
lot of
think it's
change.
possible,
Yeah.
right, I think it's possible that was a real plan, like,
Yeah,
everything lays out exactly, but that doesn't mean that that's exactly things are always changing and that has been
exactly.
around for a long time, like 30 years or something now. So,
Yeah,
I think it's possible that was a plan, or at least one of multiple plans,
right,
and,
right,
I think maybe now things are playing out a little bit differently, but the same concepts are happening, the same general things are happening,
Right.
maybe just not in that
And
yeah,
exact way.
they say if things are going according to plan, you're doing something wrong because
Right.
like things change, like you said, in the fog of war, and this is war, and that's triggering for some people. But really, at the end of the day, I mean, you can't deny that. You'd have to really
we're
put
in
the
a
ball.
spiritual war. I
Right.
mean, it's,
Right.
Yeah.
it may not necessarily be, World War II or World War One level, but it's definitely, I would say on the spiritual level, it's just as intense, and so I
Yeah.
think that's why we're seeing, like, things just go to hell in a handbasket, in the 3D because, I mean, this is like one thing every day there's, like, not just one, but, like, a lot of things that are going on, and sometimes I wonder if some of that's exaggerated, like, the
Oh, yeah.
media is exaggerating it because they wanna keep people in fear, but because I do believe there's a lot of good out there too, it just doesn't get broadcasted as much because
Shoved in everyone's faces 24/7 constantly.
yeah, exactly,
You
yeah,
gotta actually look
so,
for that stuff.
but I do think, the dark cabal, if I guess I'll just call them that, they're pulling out all stops. They're just trying everything they can to maintain control. They're actually panicking, I think, behind the scenes because I think by now they were hoping that they can implement Agenda 21 and and the New World Order, which hasn't exactly happened. And so I think they're doing whatever they can, and but it's almost out of desperation, not from the sense of, oh yeah, we totally have won this.
Right,
Yeah.
and I think
Absolutely.
the telltale sign of that is how overt their moves are now.
Yeah.
They don't even care to conceal it because,
Not at all.
they're desperate. So
There's
that's a
desperate.
good sign for me, and I think one of the takeaways from what you said earlier, giving us this galactic history, is that there is an extraterrestrial component to this war, to everything that we see on the surface. It's not about always oil and resources and all this, these political issues that they just, overwhelm us with and bombard us with. I
Yeah.
think that it is the real story behind the moves that are being made on the world stage absolutely have to do with the galactic war that's playing out behind the scenes. And, if they're invading a certain region, I would say it's for a technology or a Stargate over a mundane resource. I mean,
Oh,
resources are
absolutely.
great, but yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on that as far as like a Stargate presence in the portal system being a reality and the military actually guarding stuff like that?
Oh, I believe that's totally happening. I used to be a big fan. Obviously, I'm a sci-fi fan. Okay, I like all the sci-fi shows, but I I remember back in the '80s. I don't know if it was '80s or '90s, but I used to love Stargate SG-1.
Oh man, love it.
90s. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that
I
was
love it
such a
so good.
cool show. And I honestly think it's based in reality.
Mhm.
Actually, here's a little side note. I still own a property in Colorado Springs, so I live just north of Colorado Springs in a town called Castle Rock. But Colorado Springs is my hometown, and when I was single, I bought a little townhouse. Well, my townhouse exactly faces Cheyenne Mountain, which is where NORAD was located, and I used to always think about Stargate SG-1 and, like, the fact that, my little property faces that big mountain, and there was some freaky, energies coming from there. I just remembered when I lived there, I just never could feel totally relaxed, like, I was always anxious, a lot of anxiety because of the energies emitting from that mountain, and NORAD still exists there. I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely public knowledge, but I do think a lot of the Stargate SG-1 series was based in reality, and that there are Stargates all across this planet that maybe bring people to other dimensions or another other planets or other realities. And I do think the Dark Cabal is very, very aware of these locations. And maybe at one point they had more control, but um, I don't know. I think the whole thing with Venezuela and with Greenland, there's a reason why President Trump is so interested in Greenland, and if I had to guess, it's because there's a Stargate there. It's not because, "Oh, yeah, let's just take over Greenland," like, just add another state to the union, I
Or
don't think it has anything to do with
or
that.
or just security from Russia, like,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
that's a more surface level explanation a lot of people are saying right now, which, on paper makes sense, is like, "Oh, we need it because Russia could just, like, invade anytime if we don't," which I don't think it's gonna happen anyway, but, no, like you said, the deeper stuff is what you gotta, like, dig more for and realize, like,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
there's stuff. It's probably something like Stargate or, David Wynn Miller, who Tyler and I ran across this video talking about there's a giant spacecraft under the ice there. It's also possible. Could be both, could be other things as well, who knows?
Yeah, I do believe there's some deeper extraterrestrial reason why,
Yeah,
the US government is interested in those specific locations,
right.
and then Venezuela, I'm not real privy, other than, it was an old Inca stronghold at one time, but I know there's a lot of sightings in South America, so there might be some extraterrestrial reason why, President Trump felt the need to take over Venezuela or at least try to, oust things besides just the drug trade and, the corrupt government there, but,
Mhm.
um, and then, um, and then
Well, the real
also, I
oh,
think
sorry.
there might be, even some reason for the interest in the Middle East or the interest in the Ukraine, so these are all places that had pyramids and had, extraterrestrial presence in the past, so I wouldn't doubt that there's still an extraterrestrial presence there now, so that's I just wanted to finish saying that, so
Yeah,
thank Yeah,
real quick on Venezuela, it
yeah,
was being used as a proxy of the cabal
yeah,
to do, I mean, not just all the types of trafficking were going on,
mhm,
but also it was being used to get to us, basically, to take
mhm.
over the US and all of North America through they were using it as a proxy,
Oh,
basically.
absolutely, yeah,
So, it seemed like we had to basically do that to stop that, essentially,
right,
and to
right,
take back control of
Yeah.
our own hemisphere.
oh, yeah, totally. And I also think that, like Tyler was alluding to, that there is a long history behind all of these events that are occurring now. So it's based on maybe Atlantean karma or things that have happened in Egypt or things that happened a long time ago in Lemuria, and this just keeps playing out until just giving us an opportunity as, I would say, light workers and truth tellers that hey, let's create a different outcome this time. Let's create what Earth always should have been, which was a fifth dimensional planet, which it was at one time, but
Right.
after the fall of Atlantis, it plunged into the third and has been there ever since. So hopefully at some point we can return to that state. I
Right.
mean,
I think we're on our way.
I do
I
too,
think we're well on our
actually.
way there.
And
Yeah.
Yeah.
and there's, so Carrie Cassidy's one of her whistleblowers, Mark Richards, he talks about, in particular, Africa and South America being, basically terms were negotiated in some sort of extraterrestrial treaty with our government to give different rogue groups of extraterrestrials basically real estate here on Earth.
Mhm.
And underground in Africa and South America seems to be where a lot of these extraterrestrials are being housed,
Mhm.
are given free rein to do whatever they want underground there, and I think that's a realistic assumption.
Oh,
And,
absolutely, yeah.
I would say that there's a lot more ET cities and bases, or even if they're just setting up an outpost, as a
Mhm.
research station,
Mhm.
things of that nature are existing in those areas, and if there's no one if no one is basically controlling all that, we
Mhm.
don't wanna seem like this, somebody like Trump is this powerful dictator trying to control it, but whenever that stuff is just allowed to just be unchecked, I think that there's any number of possibilities that could happen as far as, these rogue groups attempting to thwart the effort. So you have to keep, everything monitored. And I think
Yeah.
that's also what this is monitoring the situation, seeing who's where and say, listen, I know you made a deal with this group anymore, but they're not in charge anymore. So here's the
Mhm.
new deal. Like you can keep your place, but you got to stop experimenting on these people or whatever it is.
Yeah, this is what won't be allowed. This is what
Yeah.
will. Yeah.
Yeah, my understanding is that, I guess gray alien abductions ended in the 1990s. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the information that was floating out, which I wouldn't doubt that because you don't hear as much about, just random abductions.
Right.
like we used to, like back in the 70s and the 80s, where it was just like, oh my gosh,
Right.
or even the, 1950s, where,
Mhm.
people were just getting abducted and, getting experimented, prodded and poked and everything. You don't hear about that as much. And if somebody is getting abducted, I've done enough readings for abductees to know that if you're getting abducted, now, maybe not in the past, but now, it's probably because you have a contract with those beings, more than likely. Maybe you don't remember, maybe you don't wanna remember, but on some level, you made a
Yeah.
contract to, work with those beings, and so they're cashing in, on the contract, um, but yeah, I do think, that things are definitely shifting and changing even in the extraterrestrial realm where, um, we're not seeing as much of the, underground, the dumbs that, the underground, uh, bases that are doing all the child trafficking or the human trafficking. I think a lot of those were taken out, like, especially quite a few I would say about maybe a decade ago, and I heard this from Tolek. I don't know if you're familiar with Tolek.
Oh, yeah.
He claims
Yeah,
to
yeah.
be a,
I used to listen to him.
representative from the, Andromeda Council. So I remember Tolek saying that I think it was a few years ago, but there was a group of Sirius A, um, folks and a group of Procyon. So Procyon is the neighboring star to Sirius. So Sirius is in Canis Major, Procyon is the biggest star in Canis Minor. So they tag team a lot on projects. And from what he said, they tag team together to take out 13 of some of the underground bases where there was a lot of human trafficking and child abductions, happening, and most of them were reptilian outposts, and, that sounds plausible, I don't know if that's true or not, but it totally sounds plausible to me,
Mm. Right.
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
so I wouldn't be surprised if there are extraterrestrial groups that may not be appearing to help us overtly, but maybe behind the scenes, trying to assist us,
Yeah.
maybe more covertly.
You know,
Right.
my favorite thing about the way you deliver your information is you say, "I don't know if this is true or not, but it's plausible." That goes such a long way as opposed to, let's just say another other galactic historians or people out there that, like, matter of factly tell you, like, this is what it was, and maybe everything you're saying is absolutely matter of factly what it was, but I
Mhm,
think there's something to be said about that approach because
mhm.
that information is hard to believe in the first place. But when you're telling people this is what happened, it's a lot different than letting them decide on their own if that's what happened. So I think it's just I just wanted to highlight that. I appreciate your approach in delivering this information. And it's very humble and it's just I just want to
Yep.
point that
Putting
out.
yourself as an ultimate authority on the true
Right.
Oh, I'm
information, which is
not
what
an
a lot of people
authority.
there's a lot
I'm
of
on the
people out
journey
there.
like I'm on the journey like everybody else, but I guess maybe because I have access to the Akashic records, maybe I do see a little more information, but then, I always have to remind myself that, this is my frame of reference that I'm kind of filtering this information through. So
Mm,
maybe it's real to me, it might be real to other people, but it's probably not real to everybody. So I always go through things with that. Even when I do an Akashic reading for, like, say, a client, I'll always tell them, this is just coming from my interpretation. So,
mm.
take what resonates, maybe don't take what doesn't resonate, but
Right.
Right.
but I would never claim to be, like, the utmost authority on, all things
Well,
galactic, it's like,
right, or anything other than my information has to be false no matter what kinda thing.
"Oh,
Right.
There's a lot of
no."
people doing that out there, so
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
no.
appreciate.
So that kind of, in a weird way, segues into what I wanted to talk about with the Earth experiment And I know, like, this is, it's a debate, right? And
Yeah.
it's a belief system debate at the end of the day. But I think there are a lot of indicators that would point towards this being an experiment. And maybe you'd like to share with us what you've seen in the records that, has led you to believe that, yeah, this whole thing we're experiencing right now is in fact an experiment. Is that
Mhm.
what I understand?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's why I called that section the Earth experiment, 'cause, uh 'cause that's kinda how I saw it. So when I was, going into the Akashic records or getting downloads, I would see, Earth being colonized. So Earth has been colonized from extraterrestrials for probably at least 4 million years, back. And I think one of the first groups that was interested in Earth was the Syrians because of their proximity to Earth. I mean, they were very close to Earth. And the Syrians were kind of practical, they were just kind of like, this is a nice little planet. Let's go check. And they were kind of scientific minded at the same time, so this is a nice planet. Let's go check it out. And so, they wanted to uh, colonize it, I guess for their reasons, but, for what I've seen in the records, there was quite a few groups that ended up getting really interested in Earth, and so Earth is kinda like this composite of DNA from I would say at least 22 different star races. It might be even more than that, but, so there's like 22 star races that brought their DNA from their home planets to Earth and wanted to see like, hey, how will it work when we have more diversity on one planet? And so it was always meant to be an experiment. It's kind of like a composite of DNA from many different places. So that's why I think Barbara Marciniak called it the living library, which I think is a beautiful description. Um, but But then there was always these conflicts, so the reptilians wanted to take over, so there was always, conflicts between different groups. There was some of that going on. And then I think at one point, so there's this kind of like this basic template throughout our universe that there's the mother goddess consciousness template, and then there's the father god consciousness template. And so I think the higher galactics, we're looking at Earth and thinking, okay, let's see if we can take that template and apply it to Earth. So we're gonna develop a civilization that is more the divine feminine or or the mother goddess representation, which is Lemuria. And then they developed the counterpart civilization, which was Atlantis, which was more the father god representation. And I think at the time they were, I think just trying to see if they could create duality consciousness on the planet and if they could coexist with each other. And obviously that's not what happened, there was this conflict always between Lemuria and Atlantis, and then which created their downfall. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then they decided. So I would say some of the Atlantean survivors. Um, I honestly think Atlantis was actually closer to North Africa than and to Europe than the Caribbean. I mean, that's my belief, but because there was a lot of Atlantean survivors that ended up migrating to Egypt, and they were thinking, okay, we really messed up. Let's see if we can create a new civilization that's a combination of both. That's kind of like a composite. And that was what Egypt was supposed to be. And actually, Egypt was quite successful for quite a few thousand years. I mean, it was, but I think like a lot of civilizations, it became increasingly more and more patriarchal, and which also led to its downfall. So you see the same pattern over and over again on planet Earth. So you get a civilization that starts off with really good intentions, like, oh yeah, we want to stay on the spiritual path, and then people get into power and they don't want to be spiritual anymore. They want the technology, they want
Power and control.
the military, the power and control. Yeah, so
Right.
we've seen that over and over again,
Yeah.
on this planet.
And I would say that this explains the religions, the placement of the
Mm.
religions too. If you're
Mhm.
gonna go back to, let's just say 22 as an example,
Mhm.
22 different genetic groups, different experiments, and early on, you could break each one of those experiments up into a religion, make
Mhm.
sure that no one's marrying outside of their religion so they're not cross-contaminating their experiment, right? And it
Mhm.
was they had to keep it controlled, and they needed that constant, right? Well, that eventually, obviously, they can't control like they thought they could, and that's
No.
all been that we're mutts now.
Yeah, pretty
Um,
much.
but I think that that would explain why even in still certain religions, it's like that's the belief system because
Mm.
it's a really just we're talking a battle of the bloodlines when we get down to it. And,
Oh,
uh
absolutely.
and yeah, so I think that the hierarchy and the Anunnaki and the Sumerians, like, it really comes down to bloodlines and even the royal family and who their ties, whatever ancestral lineage they have. It's about keeping that bloodline in power. And I don't know if you've ever came across any of that stuff as far as, the bloodlines in your records.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Always, uh, sometimes because my clients have a connection with that, or sometimes it's from my own interest, 'cause, I don't know, I have, like, this fascination with, I don't know, the royal family in England. 'Cause, I mean, on the surface, they appear so proper, but I honestly think they're reptilians. I mean, I don't know. I just think
Mhm.
there's something very dark. And then I also saw on the records that there was 300, I would say, prominent families in Europe that signed contracts with reptilians in order to keep their families in power. There was quite a few families from Italy or from Spain and, obviously the UK. Actually, my husband's, family from Scotland is one of them, the Stewarts, so that was kinda interesting, but there was quite a few of these families that signed contracts with the reptilians because I think it was self-preservation, honestly. I think it was like, let's make a deal with the devil so that, we'll keep the wealth and we'll stay in power and we'll have the protection and nothing will happen to us. So part of it was self-preservation and part of it was maybe greed. So there's that as well. And but yeah, I've seen kind of this greater influence of after the fall of Atlantis, like a lot of these beings that were in power infiltrated different countries throughout the planet, and maintained their reign in these locations for, I would say, probably thousands of years, if not at least hundreds of years. So I would say a lot of these groups, like I don't know if you guys ever uh did research on the presidents of the United States, how they're all related to each other, all of
Mhm.
them, like
Yeah.
they're all
Yep.
related to each other. So there's a reason why somebody becomes a president or somebody becomes a king or a ruler of some sort. And it's based on genetics, it's not based on, oh yeah, they're the best choice for the position, you know? And I think it's the same in Hollywood too. I think there's a lot of cloning in Hollywood. I mean, I know that sounds really out there, but I notice a lot of these, Hollywood celebrities look very similar to each other, and, some of them are, dead, ringers or doppelgangers. I mean, it's kinda crazy, so I
And
think they're
nepotism where,
yeah, a lot of nepotism,
it's
yeah.
like
Yeah, it's
keep
just
it in the same bloodlines
oh, yeah.
mostly.
Oh, yeah, so there's a reason why somebody becomes famous in Hollywood, and it's not because they're so talented, it's because
No,
they have the right genetics, they're connected with certain groups,
they're
so,
controllable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Mhm.
There's a show out there called The Magicians, and I've only seen a few episodes, but the one episode I watched was about, this bloodline. It's about that whole show is about, like, white magic and black magic and
Oh,
the whole
cool.
portal system, and I think it's major disclosure. It's kinda like, a more adult version of Harry Potter and what it really looks like as far as the
Mhm,
secret societies go, but one of the somebody passes away, right? That's at at the top of one of these secret societies, and the only person that could take over that spot is somebody of that bloodline. Well, the only person living was this like drug addict kid who was the worst possible candidate, but it had to be him because it's important to have their bloodline in that position of power so the magic works. Um,
Mhm.
and so it couldn't have been anybody else, even though he couldn't have been a worse fit. And we even see the same thing down to basic corporations here in the surface.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
always the wrong people in the positions of power, but there's a reason behind that. And I just think it's interesting to highlight that because it doesn't make sense when we wonder like how is this person running this country or whatever it looks like.
Mhm.
It's because of the bloodline and who that
And,
person is. Yeah.
and the occult magic, like that's such a key point, and it's because these people are. This is part of the power differential. Is they
Mhm.
know they have that knowledge. They want to keep that knowledge away from the masses so that
Right.
they don't understand what's really happening, and they also have all the power because they know all the occult rituals and magic. They're doing black magic, of course, using it for power control and domination, and manipulation rather than, they could be using it to we could be all using it to help each other, but instead, it's being used by a teeny, teeny, tiny group against the masses to keep the power and control. But that's changing now, and I mean, it's changing naturally, partly just because of the awakening and because of the internet and things where we all are like, it's not
We all
working
have
like it
access
used
to
to.
the information.
We all have access to the information, like,
Yeah.
and we're not all watching the same mainstream media like it used to be. We're not all, the mind control's not working like it used to, and the magic's
Mhm.
not working like it used to. It's working to a certain degree, but nowhere near like it used to. And then
No,
that's
not to the same level.
right, and that's going to
Yeah,
keep going.
on that note, I grew up Catholic, you mentioned that in my introduction, and I just remember, growing up Catholic that, I was taught that astrology was demonic and numerology was no demonic and all the occult, modalities, were not of God and, stay away
Yeah,
from all that stuff, which made me more
yeah.
fascinated with it, honestly, so
Yeah,
Right.
I was
I grew
like
up Christian, not Catholic, but Christian, and I was told all the same stuff,
yeah, all the same
all the
stuff,
same
and there was
stuff.
a reason why they didn't want us delving into those modalities because you get the inside scoop, like, if you understand astrology or you understand, these various systems that these dark Kabbalists are also using,
Mm,
they were using all of that, behind the scenes. I know Ronald Reagan was famous for using astrology. He was
mhm,
always consulting his astrologers.
Mhm.
So
yeah,
a lot of them were using it, but they didn't want us to have access to it. So they told us that nope, can't do it.
yeah. They tell us it's BS, nonsense, while
Nonsense.
they're all using it. Right.
And they're all using it. So that's definitely has changed. Where now I would say, doing using tarot or doing astrology readings is now pretty commonplace. A lot of people,
Mhm.
love those modalities and use it. And I would say the same is happening with Akashic readings, where before, and I still get people online that mostly trolls and
Yeah.
bots. I don't know. That's
Mm,
say that Akashic readings are BS and, what I talk about is BS, but even that's becoming more widely accepted, where,
mhm,
more and more people are, interested in past life regression work or hypnotherapy or Akashic readings, so I do think the tide is changing, but there's still a lot of asleep people on the
yep,
planet. It's a lot.
yeah,
It's almost shocking, because like Tyler was saying earlier, I mean, the dark cabal don't even try to hide it. They just like do stuff and they don't care. They made it so obvious that you gotta be really stupid or living under a rock to not
yeah.
notice, but I guess, maybe that's where some people are at. I don't know, but,
Well, that is
not to be
waking up.
judgmental. Yeah.
That is waking up a lot of people. I mean,
Yeah.
especially during COVID, and all the
Oh god,
shenanigans
yeah.
happened there. Like, I hear so many people, they're like, "That was the catalyst for my awakening or the very start to get me on this path to where I am now." And that was only 5, 6 years ago, you know?
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
Um,
that was, And I almost
Yeah.
think that the COVID was allowed,
Mhm.
in order to awaken the public. I mean, I think that was probably the bigger reason besides, the eugenics aspect of it or, you know, uh,
Mhm. Yeah.
it's like, let's let this play out so that, people see what a pandemic it really was, so
Right.
yeah.
I totally agree. I think it was allowed to the degree it was allowed. I think they wanted it to kill many millions and be way worse than it was, and they wanted the control to be way worse, all the things they talked about, the vaccine passports and all the things,
Yeah.
um, but none of that was allowed. I think it was allowed to the degree that it was beneficial for us and for a
Yeah.
catalyst for awakening, but no more of what they wanted, right? And I think that's
No, I
kind of the times we're in. It's like a certain amount of scary stuff is being allowed because it's
yeah.
for our benefit.
Yeah, and I believe that too, actually, that,
Mhm.
yeah, it's just to wake up the masses, trying to
Right.
get us to that point of, where hopefully we're reaching that sooner and sooner.
Yeah,
So,
and
Right.
yeah.
well, I think too. Oh man, I just lost my thought. So, COVID, they let it happen. Oh man, it just escaped me. Um, oh yeah, I was gonna say there's always casualties, right? Like
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
always, no matter how we look at it, there's going to be casualties. So I think some people out there have this fantasy timeline in mind where like everything can be done peacefully.
Mhm.
I just hosted a conference or emceed a conference here in Sedona, and Isley was speaking, and she made a great point. People were having issue with the way we handled the Venezuela situation in Maduro
Mhm.
and like with these apparently 20 super soldiers, the whole thing. And she was like, this is a nasty cabal that has been doing unthinkable, nasty things to people. And sometimes you got to get nasty. Like she's like, sometimes
Yeah.
you got to like,
Yeah.
you have to fight the fight. And
At
at
this
this
phase
phase,
of time,
At this phase,
there
yeah.
has to be. You can't just just let everything. No, there has to be still this clampdown of control at this point
Mhm.
in time. That doesn't mean it's going to be like that forever, but right now,
right. Well,
absolutely.
and like I just shared it again today because I love this clip. It's Sylvester Stallone being interviewed about Rocky, saying how it's actually a Christian story and like it's a whole thing. But at the beginning of the movie, it shows Jesus, it pans down to him getting pummeled, and it's like showing the audience that he's this chosen one. And
Mhm.
the interviewer is like, "Well, I don't understand how is getting in the ring and pummeling somebody a Christian thing?" And he's like, "Well, spoken word only gets you so far, and eventually you're gonna need a crusader, somebody to go out there in the front lines and fight evil one on one. Like, you just eventually gonna need that crusader archetype. You can go speak the spoken word in church all day, but somebody's gotta fight. And that's where we're at right now. Like, unfortunately, either we've allowed this situation to happen or we've been deceived or tricked into allowing it to happen. Either way, we're here. And the only way to take it down is not, I think they've tried peaceful negotiations. I think
Mhm.
we've seen evidence of them attempting that, but
Mhm.
the dark doesn't play like that. So
Right.
unfortunately, you got to play on their terms, and that's what we're seeing, I think.
And I think that's why the term spiritual warrior applies right now. So even the Arcturians, they have very advanced starships with, I would say, extremely advanced weaponry because even if you're the most peaceful race on Earth, you still have to defend yourself and you still have to,
Right.
sometimes do what you got to do, to stop evil from spreading. And you see this also, with, maybe a lot of people criticize Donald Trump. I mean, but I honestly, and I do think he plays both sides. I do think he's from Orion originally. So, I saw his records, so he saw the whole Orion Wars play out and he's been preparing for his role on Earth for millennia. But I do think sometimes you need to have big daddy energy. I mean, hate
Mm.
to say it, but you do need to have somebody that can take things by the, the strong, by the cojones and say, "Hey, I gotta play hard in order to get something accomplished." And I think that's the bigger picture that I think a lot of Americans aren't seeing, that
Mhm.
he's a catalyst for change, whether he
Yeah.
does it in a good way or a bad way. This is something that's needed right now because you can't
Yeah.
be this, feminine type and be like, oh, yeah, well, let's just, all get along. And, I mean, that was Biden's approach. And
That wouldn't accomplish anything,
it didn't
right?
accomplish anything.
Nothing.
Yeah.
In fact, it
Yeah.
would make things way worse, right?
It
So
made things worse. Yeah.
Exactly, that's what I've been saying ever since
Yeah.
day one is, like, he is a catalyst, like you just said, he's a catalyst for change, he's fulfilling a very important role, and I like what, Elizabeth April said that she got is that he's like a wrecking ball coming in to destroy the old system so that we can build
Exactly.
a new system
the bringer
that
of
Yeah.
we can build.
chaos.
He's a bringer of chaos, and that's not
Yeah.
a bad thing,
Yeah.
that's a good thing
Totally.
because the system, everything we've been in has been really bad. So
Yeah. Really,
destroying
really
we have to
bad.
destroy that because it's so solidified, right? Something has to
Right.
come in as a wrecking ball so that we can then build something new.
Well, there was
Yeah.
that one girl asked her AI, she's like, "Is Trump a dictator?" And I said, "No, Trump isn't a dictator. He's the wrench in the machine that is here to break down the system that was created by the dictators." So,
Exactly.
and it's debatable, but while we're kind of covering that, do
Yeah.
you believe that there is a lot of people think like Melania is a Pleiadian and there's like an extraterrestrial connection directly with the Trump family and this whole time travel aspect? Has any of that come through the records?
Yeah, I actually saw some of that myself. I do think Melania started off being part of the Royal House of Avion, which is more of a feline group from Lyra. So that was her original genetics, but she's had incarnations in Sirius and Pleiades. So that's why people always say, "Oh, she looks Pleiadian." Well, yeah, she's had lifetimes in the Pleiades. So she comes from, I guess, galactic royalty. you know. Um, what I saw with Donald Trump was interesting. He actually I don't know what his origins was, but when I looked into his records, I saw that he originated from Rigel, which is a reptilian outpost star system in the Orion constellation. And so he spent many lifetimes trying to escape that system, and eventually I do think he made it to one of the belt stars of Orion, and he also I think he's worked, with, Robert Kennedy, Jr. in the past, from because the whole Kennedy family is also from Orion, and they're kinda catalysts for change too, and they're not necessarily totally good. I mean, they're kinda like Donald Trump, they carry kind of a duality within themselves, like, I think they try to do the right thing, but then they also do some really kinda negative things, so he's had connections with certain groups. Eisenhower also, family was from Orion. I've verified that with Laura at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah, she feels a connection to Orion. And uh, and so these groups were part of that Black League resistance fighters. So they decided they were going to fight against the Empire, and so they did that in Orion, and they're also trying to fulfill that destiny here on Earth as well. But yeah, I do see, and I do think that Donald Trump, eventually did have some incarnations in the Pleiades. Also, I guess try to refine his personality. He, I think needed to spend more time in the Pleiades, but
Right.
but that's where he met Melania, so they have this contract with
Mhm.
each other.
Yeah, and that's fascinating to me, especially if you're gonna be born in a reptilian outpost. That means you're born into the very system, so you understand it from the inside out. That
Oh, he
system
understands the system inside
Yeah.
out. Yeah,
The
right,
belly of the beast to
which
yeah,
which is
exactly,
which
yeah.
is
take it
what
down.
would be necessary to come dismantle it on another planet.
Mhm.
I mean, you have to understand, and maybe he doesn't consciously remember all of it, but he has a soul memory. Um,
Exactly,
and
yeah.
there's just something interesting, like, if you're gonna zoom out in the solar system or
Mhm.
intergalactically. I'm
Mm.
sure like everybody knows. Like when people talk about Earth right now, Trump probably comes right along with it.
Yeah,
His
exactly.
hair is probably sitting on top of Earth. Um,
Yeah,
but it's just he's that. I'm not trying to put him on this pedestal. What I'm saying is that he is that much of an player in this. He's an impactful player, and he's playing that role, the bringer of chaos, and that archetype to it's literally shaking up the entire planet. It's a
exactly.
planetary thing. And
Yeah,
whether you
yeah.
like it or not, I think it desperately we needed an
We
overhaul,
needed
and
that.
yeah,
We needed it. I mean,
Yeah.
you couldn't have a wussy person, like, "Oh, yes, let me come and spread love and light," and, because that's not gonna end things, you need somebody like, Elizabeth April was saying, like the wrecking ball that's just gonna, shatter all these old systems,
right,
and that's why the powers to be didn't want him to become president. They tried everything they could to prevent him from,
right,
Yeah.
even faking the elections,
right,
with Biden,
Right.
so yeah,
right,
it's definitely a bigger stage than what I think a lot of people on this planet realize, and it's been ongoing, and it's been what I thought was most fascinating in the records was that he actually was preparing for his role on Earth for many, many, many lifetimes, that it was predestined that he was gonna be where he's at,
right.
so
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think part of the reason people are resisting what's happening right now is because, like, we've been living the comfortable lie for so long, and the truth is uncharted territory. It's not comfortable, and, it forces you like, everybody wants change until it's time to change, and then
Mhm.
they resist it and start fighting to save the very system that's been enslaving them, and it creates this whole loop, right? So,
Yeah.
it's really interesting to see right now, like, I just wanna say this to anyone listening, like, if you are fighting what's coming, like that's programmed into you. That's a comfortable you're fighting to save this comfortable lie, this world that we were programmed to believe exists. That world doesn't actually exist. The truth is being revealed and it's uncharted territory for everyone. The truth is uncomfortable and it forces you to change. And I think that's why a lot of people resist that because the change externally means that they have to change and people identify with things and old ways of life that they don't want to let go of. But unfortunately, if you want the things that you think you want, you have to make sacrifices. You have to let go of things and you have to change. And I think that's where people are they're being met with a choice right now. And literally the planet itself is like moving into these frequencies that aren't allowing people to just sit complacent anymore. And I think that's why the there's so much mind control and so many people are still asleep and all this weaponization of the air and the water and the food and the soil and everything. It's because they're desperately trying to keep those people on that hamster wheel in that consumerism mentality so they don't break out of it and start moving along with the frequencies. And I think it's really just a matter of everybody understanding that they need to let go of what they once believed in and what they once identified with. And I think that's where we're going to see some
It's
real change.
hard. I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of cognitive dissonance out there, and I also think that I think a lot of humans for, I would say, millennia has been trained to be subservient, to let somebody else take care of them, whether it be, the government, the religion, and so they've learned to be victims.
Right.
So in order to step into change, you have to be willing to take responsibility. In order to step into sovereignty, you have to be willing to take risks. And humans have been programmed for a long time that taking risks are bad, or changing your belief systems is really bad because you could get killed, if that happens,
Right.
so,
Which is
Yeah.
fear. So they keep you in the fear frequency,
exactly. Yeah.
disempowered, giving somebody else the responsibility over you. Somebody else is saving you. Somebody else is controlling you. So you don't have to do it. And you're also this powerless little being that doesn't have it. It's all the inversion of the truth. So now it's great because now with Trump and with the exposure of the fraud or the
Mhm.
corruption and just everything going on right now, it's revealing what's always been there. It's not that things are getting worse. It looks like it's getting worse on one level because it's for the first time revealing what's always been there.
Yeah.
And it's forcing people to take their power back naturally because
Mhm.
we can no longer put our trust even in any of these institutions or people. Um, and it's getting people to stop putting all their power out there, and it's getting them to be like, oh, I'm the only one I can depend on. I'm the only one that can save me, not
Oh, absolutely.
anything outside
Right.
of me.
Yeah.
And that's what I think Trump is also a catalyst for getting people to take their power back,
Yeah.
step into their
No,
power.
and that's why, the powers to be didn't want him in, in
Right.
that position,
That is the last thing they
Right.
want.
They did not want that. They did
They did not.
everything in their I mean, even to, even more corruption and, trying, assassination attempts, and oh my god, this is like
Right.
And then we
ever
all unify realizing we're all the same, and
Yeah.
no one's better than anyone else, and that also they don't want. They want
They
everyone
Right.
don't like that
divided and
either.
not fighting
No,
and
they wanna still keep, 99% of all the money, so, they don't
poor,
wanna
and
get
they have all the money. Right. All the
Yeah.
rest.
Well, yeah, and we're at the we're at the precipice of a big moment here on Earth, I think.
Mhm.
This year, potentially, who knows what's on the horizon. There's a number of things on the table right now, and moves being made every day, like you said earlier. So I don't know. I think we just, have that awareness, have hyper self-awareness moving forward, and just know yourself and your surroundings, and understand the bigger picture, and I think you'll be all right. And I guess we'll start wrapping this up. Is there any final words or anything on your mind that you'd like to share with us or the audience before we go?
Um, just that, I will be at Conscious Life Expo, so for those folks that are in the, I guess, California, LA area, I will be, part of the ET Connections panel and also be doing a workshop, so there's that, and of course, I'll be at, Journey to Kona, with you guys, so, if you love Hawaii as much as we do, please join us. How many spots are there left? I mean, I
There
imagine
there's
must be
just a little over 20 spots. I haven't looked recently, but something like that.
Yeah,
So, yeah, not a whole lot. It's
Oh,
only
it's
not it's about 100 people total, so,
yeah,
um, yeah, and it's not intentionally smaller because it's where we're choosing to do it. It's a smaller venue, and we want it more intimate and,
yeah,
uh,
totally.
to kinda do it retreat style where we're gonna be getting out on the boat and, into the
Yeah.
water and sacred sites, you have to have less people, so
you can't really
Oh,
do a
absolutely.
big
Yeah,
event that way. I
yeah.
Right.
mean, that's
Yeah, so I guess, if you want one of those spots, you better act fast,
Right.
so
yeah.
and of course, I'll be there, Laura Eisenhower, Lily Nova, so,
Mhm.
there and a lot of us, speakers will be there, that, we'll be hanging out and doing all the excursions with all of you, so it'll be, a great time. So it's gonna be I truly believe it's gonna be transformational. It's gonna be totally transformational,
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
so than even conscious life.
Yeah.
But, um, and then the only other thing is, if you want to learn to be a galactic Akashic reader like I am, or like my previous students, I know Tyler mentioned the directory. So that is all my students, all the
Okay.
people that trained under me. Uh, we are going to offer the 2026 cohort of the Galactic Akashic reading course. I think the dates are either September, I think it's definitely September, but I don't know if it's August, September, or September, uh, October, but it is 6 weeks long. So just sign up on my website, if you wanna be informed of that. Um,
DebbieSolaris.com.
yeah, DebbieSolaris.com. Yeah, so, that's all my announcements. So, thank you guys for having me on. This has been a really fascinating conversation.
Yeah, we were kinda all over the
Thank you
place,
so
but it
much.
was good. I like to keep it relevant,
Yeah.
and thank you so much for joining us, and I would like to do a follow-up because what you talked about at the Cosmic Awakening conference or whatever it was, that you kinda went through the different ET races and the groups and
Mhm.
told their each one of their history, and I found it
Yeah.
absolutely fascinating. So maybe we could do that, like, a focused effort on
Yeah,
that.
I'm down to come back. So yeah, just send some dates and we'll make it happen. And then I understand you'll also be joining me on my little conversations with Debbie. So
Yeah,
so you can check us out there as well. So
yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And we love you all. Thank you for joining us. We can't wait to see you on the Big Island. Go check out our documentary on Patreon if you haven't. Journeytotruth.online is our website where you can find everything we do and more. So that link is below. We love you. And until next time, have a great evening. Hey guys, Journey to Truth is going to Hawaii. Join us in 2026 for Journey to Truth's first ever vacation conference on the Big Island at the beautiful Queen Emma Community Center in Kona. Enjoy Hawaii as we travel to sacred sites and connect with our Lemurian past and reactivate the land. It's time to get our bodies moving and take a boots on the ground approach to the awakening. We'll also be making a trip to Volcano National Park to pay our respect to Pele, the goddess of fire. We'll then journey to the water for an ocean adventure with our multi-dimensional aquatic family. We'll gear up and head to the harbor as we set sail under the sun for an activating day on the water while we experience the Hawaiian ocean life like never before. Enjoy Hawaiian sunsets and walks on the beach while connecting with Soul Family and learning a few things from our amazing lineup of speakers. Aloha! Grab your ticket today at journeytotruth.online and join us for this once-in-a-lifetime activating getaway.